So, if there is only one, there can be no other. There is only one. There is no other. And so the invitation to turn inward is an invitation to find that one, the one that you already are. That we cannot find the one, the oneness that stands alone, looking in the world of things, can only find that one inside. We could say that one, that love, that truth, that self, that God is loving you from the inside, is loving you inside you. And so if there is a looking outside for that love, you will overlook the love that is inside. And that love that is inside is the love that you are. It is the love that is. It is the love that is God. And so when we come to this great longing of the heart, longing for God, longing for truth, longing for the self, it is to turn inward and direct our love of God, love of truth, love for this divine knowing towards the source of that, in order to discover that our seeming love for God is God's love for us. It's the same. There's no difference. And all the ideas around me and God, God and me, merge in the heart of love, in the knowing of only God. God does not make a creation. There is no creation. There is only God. Only God means only God, right? There is no other. And at the same time, great glory, everything is obviously included. But it's not that this thing is God. It's that there is only God. Everything that is God, is this truth, is this divine wholeness. So of course, everything is included. And so can we marry all of the threads of our self, the threads of our being into this union? Can we bring everything into the light of belonging? Can we have the courage to not leave anything out of this wholeness in order to discover a wholeness that is complete? Could there be a wholeness that is not complete? Of course not. But we have a story in the mind that there is something missing and there is something else that is needed. Somehow we have been left out. The instructions to turn inward, to turn towards the longing, to turn towards the love for that which is unfathomable and unknowable, to turn to that again and again and again, to hold the love of that in the heart all the time until time disappears into the eternal moment, the timeless moment that is this truth, Every being is already this. We cannot pretend that we are striving to become. We are not. We have to let go of all ideas of becoming in order to know what we already are. Cannot deny the glory that is. And of course, this is not going to be understood or known through the faculty of mind. And yet mind too is God, right? Everything is playing itself out exactly as it is required in order for life to know itself through the living of itself so fully, so wholly. And life comes to know through the living of itself, through the revealing of itself, through the meeting of itself, through the loving of itself. It starts to feel its divine essence, bubbling, effervescent, shining right here on the surface. We're not speaking of something that is abstract. We are speaking of God right here, looking at you in the mirror. Every time you take a peep in the mirror, there is God staring back at you, shining through your eyes. Underneath the story of someone, God is staring God in the face, shining the glory, the truth that is right here, right now, right here on earth. It's not a guest appearance. It's an all wholeness, everything right now, full on. There's nothing abstract about the glory. The glory is, and the glory you are. And so, of course, the mind can say, well, but I don't know that. And the mind is not going to know that in the way that it wants to know that. So it is to come always to the resonance. As these words come, where you feel a resonance of truth, here's the gorgeousness. You feel the resonance because this truth is dancing in you as you already. The resonance is where you already know this truth. It is God, loving, illuminated in the heart right now. Yes, in your heart. Even little old you are God too, right? This is the grace. This is the glory. There is no way, there is no means, there is no path. But where you feel the resonance come alive, where you feel an aliveness in your heart, a tingling, a pulsing, a dancing, a yes, a yahoo, whatever it is that's happening in your heart, that is your knowing. Be with your knowing and let your knowing open into the flower of divine remembering in this moment. Can get so burdened with ideas of how to, what to do, but it's not about that. There are many ways that we can bring ourselves to a quietening, to a slowing, and all of these have benefit for the managing of stress. But to come to the glory, we have to come to the knowing of the glory as it is right here now. Can feel the longing inside. Whatever it is that it feels like there is a longing for, it is just to know that to come to the longing, to feel the longing, be one with the longing. What is that longing? What is that longing? It is in the longing that there is a remembering. It is in the longing, in the heart itself, is the light already shining. And the light already shining is the light of the self, the light of the being. We could say your being, your true self. But your being is God's being. Your self is God's self. Right? There is no division. There is no separation. The play, the dance of the world, it is all included in this wholeness. So can we marry every single part of ourself, every single part of the grace that is flowing as life, as your life? Can we meet life without resistance? To meet life without resistance is to end suffering. Suffering is created out of a resistance to what is flowing. Can we meet that flow of grace without resisting, without trying to control, without wanting something different? Can we say yes to God? Can we say yes to love, to the divine? Can we say yes to wholeness by not fragmenting with our wants and needs and desires for things to be different than the way they are? Can we give our love to God in the saying yes? Can we say yes and yes and yes? Can we even say, I don't like it, but okay, right? It doesn't feel good. It feels like a challenge. It feels like a struggle, but okay, right? It's here, okay, okay, right? We're not talking about creating spiritual moods and pretending that something different is happening than what is happening. We're in this open invitation to allow everything to be welcome here in this moment, to not deny anything, to not deny any single fiber of our being, especially the parts that want to resist. Right? Can we welcome those parts? The parts that want to resist, the parts that feel anxious or stressed or angry. Can we welcome all of those parts equally? All of those parts of ourself? Can we not resist anything that is moving and flowing as the grace of life? Can we let that be the sign that we're saying yes, yes, okay? Can we be honest? Can we admit that it feels hard? Can we admit that we're on the floor, on our knees? Can we let that be okay? In truth, it is about allowing everything to come into union with itself through the lived experience. Our lived experience is not a personal one. It is life itself, living itself, and through the experience of itself, it meets itself. It meets its gnarly places. It meets the hiccups, the discordant patterns. And in that, we could say that we are the alchemizing vehicle through our lived life that is welcoming, alchemizing through meeting the feelings, through opening to everything, even when there is a not wanting to. how is this to God? How is this to love? Not with a question that needs an answer, but with a deep knowing that somehow this too is the divine. Somehow this too is another part of ourself coming home into the grace of God's love. Can we open in a depth of surrender that does not understand? Can we open into a depth of surrender that is saying yes, even though there is not a full understanding and a full alleluia in this moment? Can we open anyway? It is in the opening and meeting, facing and not denying, that life meets itself. And when life meets itself, the flow is so alive. You feel so alive. At least you know you are alive. In this moment, you are alive because you are feeling it all and you are welcoming it all. Right? It does not matter what is happening. It does not matter. It matters to the me. And we are not ignoring the me. Of course, the me too is God. But we are not listening. We could say not indulging in the story that wants to play in a cycle of victimization, right? We're recognizing that. We're seeing that. We're welcoming that too. We're saying, okay, this feels hard. This is the resistance. This is the story that the me is bringing forward. There's wisdom too in that. But we're not getting lost in that cycle, the maze of the mind going around and around, trying to fix it, change it, control it. We're shining the light upon that. We're resting as the vast openness that allows that to be here. And as the vast openness, we're saying, somehow this too, all of it, is God, is grace. Somehow beyond what can maybe be understood or anchored in right now. Can we be in such a depth of surrender that we welcome it all? That we're not fixed in any holding place, any holding pattern, and any position. That we are so wide and open in the heart that everything is included. That the wideness of the heart includes it all. It is only this way that we come through the lived experience, through the surrender, through the continual landing in the being, in the being, in the being, in the silence, in the stillness, in this moment, here now, here now, here now. In the simple presence of this moment, undressed of story, in the simple felt sense of being here, being the openness. That we are saying yes to this. This is the turning inward, coming to the being, the being, the being, the being. Feeling the spark inside that knows that the being is God's being. That this is where the knowing of oneness, the knowing that is the remembering of the divine wholeness, is already here in this truth of who you always are and who you have always been. We do not find this in the things of the world. We do not find it by allowing ourselves to follow the distractions. We do not find it in thinking with the mind that we know something better. Of course, these kind of habits will play out until they wear themselves out. They will often wear themselves out by some kind of intensity coming in that will bring us to our knees. There is so much grace on our knees, so much grace. Everything that we do not want, everything that we want to find a solution for, if we can be with it, truly be with it, without trying to solve it in the worldly, solving it in things, if we can truly be with it, there is so much grace when we can move through what challenges us and find the opening right here in the center of it. Find the peace that is ever present right in the center of it. Find God right in the center. At the bottom of the merciful love that welcomes it all. And it is the merciful love that comes forward, especially when we are challenged. When we are challenged, can we have this merciful love rise up and welcome everything just as it is? We tend to find that when there is a readiness to go deeper, life will bring some kind of challenge, and the grace is in the challenge. Mind might say, oh, well, I'm not advancing in my spiritual path if these challenges are coming in. But the challenges are the fertile ground for transformation to happen if we have the courage to receive them. If we have the courage to receive everything that wants to be resisted, to stop being distracted by the mind and the me that wants to control. When we really come to this moment, to the being, we have to recognize that there is no doer, there is no one controlling. Everything is just happening. And if we recognize there is no one doing, there is no one controlling, that we have never been controlling, we tend to imagine that we are when we are seemingly manifesting good things, but it all falls apart when what we don't want comes along, right? We cannot come to know the oneness that stands alone, the divinity, the wholeness, if we are not willing to stand in the fire. To stand in the fire is to say yes to love. To stand in the fire is to say yes to God. It is to say yes to going all the way into this truth. The mind can say, well, I can find God over here and over here. But it is really just to be so aware of the subtleties of how the mind is playing in a flow of thinking that it knows something just trying to distract itself. It takes discernment and it takes courage. In this unfolding, it is all about the knowing, your autonomous knowing inside. And it is the constant landing in such an intimacy with your own knowing that carries a deepening, deepening. The knowing is undoubtable. The knowing is without question. The knowing is the place inside where the longing meets where the longing is coming from, let's say. It's where your love of God meets God's love for you, and it all disappears into this knowing. And it's in the knowing that the deepening happens. And in the knowing there is a blissful aliveness. A blissful aliveness that when you are resting here and recognizing this here, this is the nourishment that carries the deepening. It does not mean that challenges will not still appear on the surface of life. They will. They are the rich ground for the transformation to continue. The deeper that we go into the heart of God, the deeper that we come into union, let's say it turns around, it comes back through the heart, and it appears on the surface of life as the next assignment. And the next assignment appears, and there's this great possibility to receive it, to not resist it, to surrender in the meeting. It is not about trying to define yourself on the surface of life. It is not trying to find a certain way on the surface of life. It is about listening to the truth of the heart. But the truth of the heart is not a mental idea of heart. The truth of the heart is always grounded in the being. The truth of the heart is the unquestionable, undoubtable knowing. And it's here, in the stillness, in the silence. It's the silent ground of being. And here there is an unquestionable knowing, a peace that is never ever disturbed, a silence that is so rich. Here too is a simple happiness, an okayness, a contentedness that is not reliant upon the world and things going a certain way. Does not matter here in the sanctuary of your knowing what is happening on the surface of life. But it takes resilience, resolve, and an ever deepening maturing to get to this knowing. To get to the knowing is the sanctuary, the refuge of the being. The knowing that somehow this is the truth of who you are. And it does not always look like the mind thinks it is going to look. But here, there is a peace right in the center of life. There is a oneness with God, a depth of love that is without condition. And it is from here, from this knowing, this openness, that there comes the deeper and deeper ability to keep receiving life, to keep saying yes to this, to this, even though the mind might want to say no to this and yes to that. Of course, it will tire itself out in the end. The play of time will fall into the timeless. And in the falling into the timeless, there is a meeting of this moment as yourself, as the being. The curious thing is this whole unraveling is not for someone. It is not personal in any way. We could say this unraveling is for all beings. So can we let go of all ideas of selfish gain? But even deeper than that, it is coming to the recognition that there is only one. There is only one. What does this feel like in the resonance, in the heart, to recognize the oneness? As these words come, what happens inside? What happens to the knowing? Just to notice and to come to a deeper and deeper attunement of what happens as these words come. If the mind is feeling like it's dancing, it's just to be the simple awareness watching that, but to not go towards it, to come back to what the longing is truly for, to come here, now, inward, 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 into the presence, into the being, into the simplicity that is always, always here. And so can we marry every single part of ourselves? Can we marry everything that is here, present in this moment, without excluding anything? That if certain threads or flavors float in, if there's any resistance to any of it, it will just get amplified through the resistance, right? So it's to welcome it all, that this moment somehow, just as it is utter perfection. It might not be the mind's idea of perfection, but it is God's perfection. And in the welcoming of this moment, we are saying yes to God's perfection. The saying yes, the openness, the willingness to receive. It is this message, this bowing, this surrender to the not knowing, to the unfathomable, that carries us deeper. It carries a message to this deepest knowing that is within us of only God. It carries a message to the love that is already loving us from the inside. Can we keep falling into that love that is loving us from the inside and stop looking on the outside for love and confirmation and validation? Can we recognize that if we do look for that in the external, that it will usually bring flavors of disappointment, But there's grace in that disappointment. There's grace in the relationship that goes belly up, not the way we wanted it to go. The grace is that it's asking us, stop looking out there. Stop trying to find yourself in things. Stop trying to find love, the love that you are, out there, and find it inside, inside, inside. And there is, in the resonance of these words, there is a knowing inside you of this truth. Even if the rebel of the mind is wanting to say, no, but. Let the rebel of the mind tantrum like a child, but fall still into the grace of the deeper knowing of the love that you are, the love that is loving you from the inside, the unconditional love that you are, that is God. Cannot even really say it is God's love. It is God, love, the same. And you too are that. How can you know this if you are not being with this, right? So to know God, be with God. To know love, be with love. To know peace, be with peace. To know yourself, be with yourself. And let all of these words merge into the utter wholeness where there is no other, where there are not two, where you are not separate from that which is being sought. The remembering of the union that is already in place, the remembering of the eternal, that before we come into a human birth, the essence, our essence is God. And in the dropping of the body, the eternal nature of God lives on. And through the whole dance of life, God is dancing with God. God is speaking with God. There is no division, no separation. The sameness is all the way through. There are no levels, no layers. We are not bound by anything of the world or of the worldly. We go through layers of imagining that we are, but we are not. We are not bound by anything. And this knowing is in the knowing that is inside, in the silence, in the stillness, in the simplicity of being. So as these words come, to feel the resonance of the knowing, feel where there is an aliveness of that which is already known. That this is not about becoming. It is about seeing yourself in the light of yourself. Seeing yourself without a story. Seeing yourself in the wide open heart that includes absolutely everything. And so what is it that we want to resist? The wisdom in this is just to bring the light of awareness and the boundless compassion to that which wants to resist, that which wants to understand, that which is trying to keep itself alive. But we cannot find this truth, we cannot come to this divine remembering by constantly trying to improve that one. If we are trying to improve that one, we will be lost. It is an endless cycle. That one will never ever reach a depth of improvement that will ever be satisfactory to the mind, because that self-improvement, all that is ever being looked for is God, right? So the self-improvement is looking for perfection in the me. It's looking to create a perfect me. But we cannot find that perfection in a story of brokenness. We cannot find that perfection in a story of something missing. We cannot find that perfection in a story of fragments. We can only find that perfection by looking towards our wholeness. So we have to look through the story. We have to see the big picture. We have to feel the landing of the recognition that the mind will never ever get this. And yet the mind will keep trying. But we're not excluding mind. We're not making mind wrong or bad. We are allowing mind to be here as a welcome child, but to recognize that the mind's knowing is not a quality of knowing that carries us into the heart. And if we do not keep nourishing mind by giving attention to its wants and needs and desires, eventually the exhausted child of the mind will fall into the heart, and the exhausted child of the mind will find itself in the lap of God. And it will find itself in the lap of God in the knowing of what it has always longed for. And then it all comes together like a big song of silence. That it was never outside, it was never out there, it was never in things. The truth was always here in the heart of God, in the heart of love. That all that has ever been sought has always been here. That in this moment here, you are just as you have always been, eternally always been. You have never ever changed. You have never been anything other than the glory of God. So even the human birth and the character is God. Not God's creation, is God. Right? There's not two. So any place we want to make two, bring it back to one. Only God, only God, only God. Hold this in the heart. Only God, only God, only God. Can we dare to let go of all imaginings, all beliefs, all concepts, all possibilities of two, and fall into the divine truth? Only God, only God, only God. Can we turn into this, even if the sense is, well, the knowing isn't all the way through, even if the play of life is playing out in all the wild and crazy ways that it does? Only God, only God. Can you let the whisper be the constant song of silence in the heart? Only God. Could also be only love, only truth, right? Only Ma, only wholeness, only divine, only the divine. Whatever word brings a resonance and a feeling of opening or soaring into the infinite boundless. Whatever word resonates and brings that aliveness into its full dancing glory, flowing, 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 right? So never ever are these words to be understood. Never ever are these words to be held on to. Let them go, let them go, let them go. Even if there's something that really resonates and really feels alive, let it go. Have the courage to know that what is alive in you and recognizing what is being spoken, it's because this is you. You already are this. And this is why we point to the resonance, because it's in the resonance that the remembering is alive. It's not about the words. It's about remembering who you already are. It's not about someone giving an instruction to someone else to be something or to become. It's not that. It's this moment. You are already the glory. This moment, you are already everything that is longed for, everything that is sought for. And when these words come, if you feel the resonance of a quality of knowing, get so intimate with the knowing. How do you get intimate with the knowing? By feeling it, feeling the aliveness, feeling exactly what is bubbling up, effervescent and full and rich. Where it makes no sense to the mind, let the attention shift to the aliveness. Because where the aliveness is true wisdom. And this wisdom is God. It is intelligence. And this intelligence is divine intelligence. And you are this. You are this now. We can pretend so many things, but let us not pretend that there are two. Let us not pretend that you are apart from God or apart from love. Let us not pretend. Let us leave the what ifs for daydreams, but let us rest right here now in this truth. Feel the resonance that there are not two, there is only one, and you are that one. And we could even say that the quality of that one, the oneness, knowing itself, it deepens and deepens and deepens in the knowing of its oneness. Oneness itself shines brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter, bursts with its own brilliance. And this is inside you right now, underneath the veils, underneath anything that is masking. But it is not in trying to push away anything. It is in welcoming it all, letting love touch all of the functioning, letting love touch all of the functioning, letting love touch every single fiber, atom of your being, all the way through. In this utter openness, wholeness, where nothing is left out, can there be any defense? Can there be any protection? Right? Where everything is welcome and we're not trying to get somewhere, we're not trying to do something or follow an instruction, where it is all entirely welcome and love is touching everything, welcoming everything, because love knows its own essence as all there is. Let that essence come alive in all of your lived experience, in the utter welcoming of all that you are, in all that is happening and all that is here. So that which feels to be challenging or distracting or hard, it's to see it as the light and say, yes, and this too is here. This too is here. Okay, right? There's nothing that is not welcome here. There is nothing that love doesn't welcome, that God doesn't welcome, because God sees only God. God doesn't see someone having a challenge and that too, right? God sees only God. It's closer, 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 closer. So close, so close. And this closeness is true intimacy. The true intimacy is oneness. It is deeper than we could say even closeness and distance. It's neither this nor that, and yet it includes it all. It's all of it and none of it, all at the same time. Because how could wholeness not include absolutely everything? So it is to be here. Feel yourself here. You are here now. The simple being. And the simple being just is. There is nothing to understand, nothing to get. It is this deep relaxation into this moment, a letting go, a not knowing, falling into the unfathomable, and just simply feeling the resonance. And if there is distraction and away from the resonance, it's to just be aware of that. Allow it to be here, right? We fall into the holiness of this moment just as it is. And everything is welcomed and nothing is pushed away or denied. There is holiness, holy wholeness. We fall into an openness, and that openness is the true essence nature. And it is here that the knowing is alive. That this is who you are, before name, before form and story, before the roles. The essence has always been the same. And yet, yes, everything too is included in that wholeness. But there is no story about it. We are before everything, everything. We are the blissful emptiness. And it is in this emptiness that we find that love is loving itself. And it is in the turning inward that we find that this love loving itself is right here inside. So we have to turn inward to find this love loving itself inside. God is calling from inside. It is God calling from inside that creates the longing. We could say God longing for you. But it is God knowing God. God knowing God in you. That it is all there is. And when we turn to this, we fall into this. Beyond understanding, can feel this truth as an alive resonance. Because what shifts in this alive resonance is consciousness. Consciousness shifts. It purifies, it transforms, it irons out its discordant patterns, it settles out all of the ways that it fights with itself, dances in circles, right? It settles it out, and as consciousness shifts, there's a smoothing, a smoothing, a smoothing, a settling, a quietening, a quietening. Consciousness shifts. It clears, it purifies, it comes to know itself in and as everything. Life coming to know itself, dancing with itself, coming into a greater and greater union with itself, recognizing itself in and as everything. Through this welcoming and through this seeing of itself in everything, marrying itself, remembering itself. And as it refines and refines and refines, it comes to a point where it collapses into itself because its knowing of itself is so deep that it doesn't even recognize itself as consciousness anymore. It knows itself as God. It knows itself as a oneness that has no second. And yet it can see only itself. And the knowing deepens and deepens and deepens in the realm of the divine. Takes us into a sense of the non-existent and the nothingness. Takes us wherever we are needed. Takes us deeper and deeper and deeper into the light that we are. Shining, shining, shining as the self, the utter oneness, the utter wholeness. Shining, shining, shining. And this shining is inside. It is the shining of the self, knowing itself, knowing only itself. The being, simply being. And here in the realms of the divine wholeness, it polishes itself. It polishes itself by bringing forward whatever situations are going to be useful. So it's living and integrating through the lived experience, right? So we're not abstract. Our humanness is the vehicle for the divine to know itself more deeply. The divine and the human are not two. It's divinity, divinity, polishing, 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 polishing in order to create a vehicle to shine on the surface of life, for love to shine right on the surface of life. And this is our true service. This is what it's all about. To live this light, to live this love right on the surface of life. Sing the unique song that we are here to sing, knowing that that song is God's song. That we find a fullness, a richness in our lived experience. It's not abstract, it includes everything. Holy wholeness. This is the truth. This is all there is. And you already are, and the knowing of this is inside. So however this resonates, does not matter how it resonates. It is to find the unique resonance for where you are and jump into the intimacy with this flow of life. Jump into the flow of grace, exactly where you are. Where you are is utter perfection. It is not to try to be anywhere other, just to feel the glory and the grace and the flow of your own knowing. And here is where the intimacy is. Here is where the bliss is. Bliss is this equanimous openness. It is the almighty yes. It has nothing to do with the external. It is an internal almighty yes. The knowing, the knowing, the knowing of the glory. The glory that you already are. That this truth is at no distance from you. It is in the breath that is giving life to the form. The breath is the breath of life, giving life to the cells, to the organs, animating the form, bringing it to life. But life itself does not need the form. Life itself is life eternal. And that is the glory of who you are in truth, is that life, that eternal life that can never ever die, that is the timeless, living presence, that is the glory of God. It is in the breath, it is in the aliveness of life, at no distance, at no distance. You already are, and the knowing is here. It is to contact the knowing in the presence of now, to contact yourself. The holy communion in this moment with yourself.